Georgia with a 62-0 win over Vanderbilt is the second largest margin of victory for Georgia in this entire history of SEC play. Only one game worse, which was the 75-0 win over the Gators in the 1940s. Matt, Georgia only allowed 77 yards of total offense for Vanderbilt today. It's obviously not a competitive game in any way, but your thoughts on just how destructive this Georgia team was for Vanderbilt?
Yeah, they earned a shutout at least twice so far this year. They got one today. I think that was definitely a statement that they wanted to make. They wanted to shut out Vanderbilt and not make it easy for them, and that's exactly what they did. They stopped the run. They stopped the pass. Vanderbilt couldn't do anything offensively. But again, it talks about how fast this defense is, how fast they fly around, how deep they are. Again, it's another guy each and every play standing out, making an impact. And then you see with the second and third string guys too late in the ball game when the game's been over for 2 hours, the backups are still making a play in the fourth quarter. So it just shows you, again, how deep this is, top to bottom. But the guys who are starting, this is an elite team, and that's a word that Kirby's been using a lot now. You have to be elite if you're going to be the best team in the country and win the final game of the season. And right now they look like a team that could absolutely do that.
Yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, Matt, what you said with how when the game was over for a couple hours and they still shut them out, that's something I was looking for in the second half. If the second, third, the fourth string guys come in and do their job, and they came in and did it. I mean, what is it? They've allowed in 4 games 1 offensive touchdown, and that was to South Carolina last week. So, I mean, the other touchdown was a defensive one. So, I mean, the defense is completely shut down, and we're gonna talk, and we're gonna talk about it was Vanderbilt, but like Dean mentioned earlier before we got on this video, you play who's in front of you, and then the offense just looked super crisp with JT Daniels. He's obviously the number one choice for them. I don't think it's particularly close when he's in there. They look like they're at their best, and he can spread the ball around to whoever's out there.
Well, what stands out about JT is what he does on third down, too. He did it last year a lot, but he was very good, again, today in third down situations, very comfortable doing that. And they're very efficient in third down, and he is a big reason why.
Yeah, I mean, as Ryan was talking about before we got on this recording, there was a discussion about people saying, "Hey, it's Vanderbilt, it's Vanderbilt." I don't want to hear that. I mean, I can tell you right now, you play who's in front of you, and it matters as much how you play versus who you are playing. I mean, Georgia came out, I think it was 5 straight touchdowns on possessions. Now, a couple of them were within the 20-yard line or whatever of Vanderbilt's end zone when they got the ball. That's not Georgia's fault. I think what I could see before the game was that Georgia was very interested in being there, and Vanderbilt did not have as much energy as Georgia did. You could tell that the Vanderbilt kickers are not good, and you could tell that these two teams are not in the same universe. Those were the things I could tell, and you can tell now, y'all. I'll go to Ryan first, but the Clemson game, there was a build-up to the Clemson game. That the whole summer people were talking about the Clemson game. Nobody was talking about the UAB game. Nobody's been talking about the Vanderbilt game. Now, the Carolina game, it's a conference game, and they totally handled that. How you play in games that you play matters a lot. And for me, Ryan, they've just been on it totally this season so far.
Yeah, and Kirby even said it after the game in the media availability. If you're going to be elite, you have to be elite all the time.
Yep.
And that doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're playing a Vanderbilt that you're supposed to beat, go dominate them. If you're playing a team like Clemson, just go get the win. And you don't have to necessarily look amazing doing it, but winning the game is what matters, and that's what they're doing. If you're going to be elite, do it on all phases of the game. They were elite. I know that Kirby wasn't completely happy with the way that Camarda was doing the kickoffs, but they did get a turnover off of one of them. But I mean, it was pure domination in every facet today. And next week they're going to have a much bigger test.
Matt?
Well, I don't want to be, that guy, but you always have to look back at, what did not go wrong. They had a couple first half drops.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Did not
Yeah.
go. Did not
It
go
was
right.
it wasn't perfect. It wasn't
Right.
perfect. 62-0. It wasn't perfect, and they're gonna do all the nitpicking and film.
But I think that they struggled a little bit on the goal line. Again, when you have to get 1 or 2 yards and everyone expects you, knows you're going to run, you still have to be able to get it. I know they were selling out against the run, but I think there were 3 or 4 negative run plays in the first half alone, or a couple of times where they did go backwards a little bit. So they're going to have to clean that up. So again, the offensive line's a work in progress. They move guys around. Broderick Jones played a lot of left tackle. Amarius Mims played a lot of right tackle. So that group is one that continues to develop and get better week by week. So again, they're still down nice. So the visualize is still scary to think about when they put up 35 points in the first quarter, and they did it with a lot of their guys still out, and somewhat of a work in progress still on the offensive line.
Yeah, and see, Ryan, here today, you could see the guys coming in and out of the game. I want to take Ryan first, then Matt. Earlier this year, I think after the Clemson game, Kirby started talking about, hey, are you sure you can't have a dominant defense and win the national championship? Are you sure that's not the way that you can do it moving forward? I know they haven't played, Notre Dame or whoever. They've not played a bunch of unbelievable offenses yet. Not playing unbelievable offenses is one thing. Allowing one touchdown in 16 quarters is another conversation. Can they take this formula, move it to the playoffs and beyond? That's my question, Ryan.
Yeah, and you cut out a little bit, but I'm gonna try to answer it as best as I can. But something I talked about the other day on YouTube is just I don't think it matters as much as we keep talking about with who's out there on the field. I mean, look at what they've done with the limited experience and who they have. They just have to play with whoever can suit up and go out there and execute. And yeah, it's going to be great if people like George Pickens and Dominic Blaylock come back, but with who they have out there on the field, they're producing, and they have to just keep focusing on who's there.
Matt?
Yeah, it's not ideal to have a freshman tight end out there leading the team for the first 4 weeks and playing, first and second year receivers. But these guys are doing everything they can.
But does that matter?
I don't think it matters.
Not against
Vanderbilt.
I
don't think it matters. Period.
We'll see if it.
He did it against Clemson and UAB.
We'll see if it matters against a tough Arkansas defense. We're going to see against Auburn how good these guys really are. If you have to rely on a guy like Brock Bowers, who's very good, but again, in an ideal world, these guys are still kind of on the bench, learning. And we'll see what Darnell's role is when he comes back, because they obviously need to get the ball to Brock Bowers more. You got to get him his touches. So when these guys come back, that's going to make the team better. But Ladd has earned his, opportunity to make plays and get some touches. So has Brock. So we'll see how these, guys, when they come back, how they're working with some of the guys who have played really well these first few games, as such a young player.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I wanted to ask you something, Dean. How was the crowd breakdown?
Yeah, I would say it was at least 6-1 Georgia fans, if not more one-sided than that. I did expect more people here. I think it was only around 30,000 people. The Georgia fans certainly filled in later than the kickoff. It's a great opportunity if you're a Georgia fan. You can get a cheap ticket in Nashville. There were a lot of Georgia fans, and before kickoff, I counted somehow, and there were 27 Vanderbilt students in the student section at the time. That filled up more. Look, Vanderbilt is a long way from where they want to go and want to be. They're not competitive in this league right now. I mean, when you lose to East Tennessee State, that shows you've got a problem. But they don't have guys like Zach Stacy. They don't have Jay Cutler, obviously. They don't have players that you really need to be competitive. But it was not the crowd that I expected, like you saw in 2019 with the night game. That was a season opener. There was all sorts of, wanting to see the Dogs for the first time, and it was at night. So I would say maybe a good 1,000 people that are Georgia fans, knowing Georgia fans, got so drunk last night that they were like, so we'll just watch it on TV. This was as dominant an effort, though, globally, as I've seen, Matt. I mean, Kirby's got, I think this is his 7th shutout or 6th, one of the two, and 4 of them have come in SEC play. This was total domination from the first snap till the end, and I don't want to skip. I don't want to. I'm sorry, Matt. I don't want to skip that. I think that's really important to acknowledge and say, okay, we're here to beat their ass, and we're gonna beat their ass. Period. Nolan Smith today, Matt, talked about how the end zone, they were not letting people in the end zone. They didn't care if it was the New England Patriots.
Yeah, 62-0 looks great, but 35-0 at the end of the first quarter, it really shows how they bullied them from the very, very beginning. And then again, if you went and got a snack in the first couple drives, you come back, game's over. And that's just what it was. So
I went to the bathroom and missed a touchdown.
They came in bunches today. So, but that's what great teams do. Not only do they cover,
exactly.
but they take your face and you rub it in there. They looked like a great team. That this is what Alabama does when they did this. It used to happen. They used to beat Vanderbilt by 40+ points every year. It seemed like. So, getting back to that era of dominating the opponent, has to be put a smile on Kirby's face tonight.
He challenged the fans too, Ryan. I wonder what you thought. I thought he was going to cut a wrestling promo for a second there.
He got kind of fired up there, and that was at the end of the press conference. But I think he's acknowledging the fact that it's a noon kickoff, and he really wants people to show up because you know how it might be in Athens. People may be coming in late and everything, and some people were disappointed that this wasn't going to be a night kick next week. So, it sounded like he was challenging not only the fans, but the students. He wants everyone out there. He was getting fired up. I think what's going on in this program is very exciting.
I tell you this.
The team's going to show up.
The team's going to show up, and he said he wanted the fans to be elite. Hey, listen, the student section isn't like it used to be 25 years ago. The student section is a real problem at Georgia for the opposing team. It is a difficult place. It's not a place where you just kind of stand and look for your who your future wife or wives are going to be. It's a place that's very difficult.
Oh, I was sitting in it just last year and the year before. Yeah.
It's hard to play at Sanford because of the students. It's not the alums, and so they need the students there. But we don't know. It's so early. Like right now, I'm watching Arkansas, y'all, and Matt. That's going to be a different challenge for Georgia. Vanderbilt doesn't have the physical prowess to really bother Georgia. I don't think Arkansas could win the game, but it won't be because they mashed Georgia the whole time. I think the problem for Arkansas is they're going to be coming off this emotional game with Texas A&M. It's not an easy, situation coming across the South to play at 11 o'clock local or your time. And I just don't know if they can stick with Georgia for 4 quarters. That's my question.
Yeah, a healthy JT Daniels for 4 quarters, too. We haven't seen that all season either. So it's going to be tough, but Arkansas is a tough physical football team with a really good defense, and defense travels. So if they play the way they did against Texas and the way they have the ability to do, they could definitely give Georgia a big game. So, and I think Kirby knows that, too, because he was very adamant, like he said, about getting the fans involved this week. I think we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I don't think, Ryan, I'm going to go to you. My thing about this team right this second is it feels like they have done a lot to get to where they're at, and they're not going to give it up so quick and so easy. I think in the 19 Carolina game is what everybody's going to be nervous about. That was a different situation. No one took South Carolina seriously. They're totally going to take these next 2 games 100% seriously.
Look, I think you and I have talked about this in the past with athletes and like a killer mindset, and it feels like this team has a killer mindset and they really want it. And I don't really care who they played the last 4 games. They're 4-0. They dominated the teams they were supposed to dominate. They dominated Clemson's offense. They really want this, and I think that they know that this is a national championship caliber team, and they want to seize that opportunity. And I think Kirby Smart knows it as well, and you can feel that every time they're talking to us.
And are they Kobe Bryant? Are they going to slit your throat on national?
Are they Kobe Bryant?
We're going to see.
that's
I
right.
mean, I don't know that they're not. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being LeBron James, but I want Michael Jordan and I want Kobe. I want guys that are going to just take you and just embarrass you, hurt you, kill. Be the killer. These guys should be killers. Right now, they are. I don't know. I thought Ryan was going to say something. The delays of this press box are out of control. Sorry, it's not my fault.
It's funny. It's funny because every time you go to ask me a question, that's when you're cutting out for me. But look, they embarrassed Vanderbilt today. That's what they did. 62-0. That's embarrassing. They embarrassed UAB. They embarrassed Clemson's offense, and they got the job done against South Carolina. That was probably their worst win. I mean, I don't want to rank them.
Their worst win is by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and we talked about that a lot last week. If your worst game so far, you won by 4 touchdowns, you're in pretty good shape. I mean, is this team a killer as a whole? I think we're going to keep finding that out.
Matt?
Hey, the defense is. I mean, they were coming after blood again. 4th straight game, showing that they're probably the best defense in the country. But we're going to see how good this team is next week, because I do think Arkansas is going to give them a fight in a different way that Clemson did. And again, we don't really know how good Clemson is right now, but we know Georgia's defense is for real. It's going to keep them in every single game, no matter how far they get. And the more they start clicking on offense, and the more chemistry we can see them build, if they could play the first team a full game together, how good they can be. So I think they're going to be ready. Kirby's going to be ready. And I think Sanford is going to bring it too. But it's going to be a little bit of a fight, I think, especially more than what they've seen the past 3 weeks.
Certainly than they've seen the last 3 weeks. But I got to tell you, the last 3 weeks have shown me a lot, which is that these guys are not distracted by their circumstances. They're going right at the person in front of them. And honestly, they've dominated these last 3 games. Georgia teams in the past have not done that all the time. Even Kirby Smart Georgia teams have not done that all the time. I know from covering Georgia for 20 years, there are times when you come to Nashville and it can be a tricky place to play. Well, not this week, not this year. I mean, they beat them today in a way that they did not beat them in 2019, and it was worse than 2017. So this was a totally dominant performance, and I think I think Matt's right, Ryan. I think the Arkansas game is another measuring stick. Personally, after today, and let's just see what happens with Arkansas. I reserve the right to change my mind. I think it's going to be hard for Arkansas to beat Georgia, personally.
I mean, I agree too, and then this is their next opportunity to go out there and show that they're dominant. You know, it's a noon kick. You know, that Arkansas is going to have to travel. They're not super close to each other. Go out there and slap them in the face immediately. Yeah. Kirby said after the game, you know, he was happy how fast they started. They need to go out there and score fast, get a turnover fast, show that you're ready to dominate the SEC, which they have partially been the last few years.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see, and I'm sorry, I apologize for the gremlins here in the press box at Vanderbilt. You know, it's what we worked through during these games. But we'll have everything for you over on Dog Post. We'll see you over on the website.